Alright, y'all, I'm going to try and record this. They've changed my little recorder, and I don't have a super fancy system here. I've got like just a phone app, and it's a free recorder. This I've decided, if I really tried to do quality videos, I'd probably never upload. I was thinking about running down a lot of the epic comments from the last video. So many good comments were in that last video. I just wanted to talk through them, but not today. We'll save that one. Today I wanted to talk about things that I know, and then other conclusions that are being formed. But I know this reality is just fake. It's a construct. I know that all of this is some kind of very strong illusion, a dream, whatever it is. It feels very real, but it's just not. This goes back to 2016 and having that conversation with this outside force that's talking to me and encouraging me to continue when I didn't want to, and then following that there was this outside. It's hard to explain how I can know the difference between my own thoughts and this outside voice, but it just occasionally has come from the outside, and it just said, what do you want, basically? Is there something you want? And I just thought about it for a second, and I said out loud. I believe that it can read my thoughts just as well, but I thought it would lock it in a little bit better if I just said out loud, I'd like to know something about reality that you would like me to know. Within 3 hours, all of this stuff started happening. After I did make that statement, I just put it out of my mind. I didn't start like researching the internet or looking. I'd never even got on. I wasn't looking for stuff. Let's just say it just kind of presented itself. Circumstances came together, and I was meant to see reality shifting, the Mandela effect, and all this journey that has been happening ever since 2016. I think my channel, I started it 2 months after that, making that statement out loud. It was 2 months later that I made the channel, sometime in December. And just because I thought, this ought to be shared, these experiences, these observations should be documented. That's kind of what started it. So number one, after all these years, I can say I know for a fact reality is fake. This is a construct. There's a larger thing going on. There are forces outside of it. And I guess getting to number two, I know there's forces outside of it. And this is just, to me, absolute. Now that force might be some version of myself, and it could include others. In the Bible, this would be what Paul talks about as being a great cloud of witnesses, that there's outside observers. We feel that with the Truman Show, kind of the same thing, this outside observer force. But I also know, in addition to the outside observers, there are outside manipulators, or there are things being set up in this reality that are just like test. They feel like they might be test. The synchronicities that occur are just too great to ignore. The coincidences, the bizarre. Some of these things are like perhaps just put in this reality as Easter eggs to see if we'll discover it, and just make note of those who do. Those who observe it, that could be. It's possible. See, now I'm having to get into theoretical. But there's also personal situations and circumstances that come together so uniquely, it's just impossible for that to have just occurred. The odds are like 1,000,000 to 1. And I've been wondering if it feels to me like it's some sort of a test, like it's some sort of a, the scenario's been set up for me to experience and then see what I'm going to do with it. And there's certain life themes that keep popping up. There's certain, synchronicities that just keep coming up over and over and over. And I wanted to talk about this show for just a moment, Severance. And here's one of the synchronicities that occurred. Over the weekend, I was on Amazon Prime. No, I just saw the show Severance pop up again on the Samsung TV, and I clicked it to see if there's any any options for me to watch it other than Apple TV, because I don't have, among all the subscriptions my wife has signed us up for, Apple TV is not one of them. So it did list other options. One of the options was on Amazon Prime. So I clicked it and I found that Amazon Prime was offering the first episode for free. So I could watch the first episode. And I was like, yay, I've been hearing about this show from Matt from last year. He was talking about it a lot. And I've been wanting to at least see one episode. So I got a chance to watch it for free. Little did I know, at the same time I'm watching Severance for the very first time, Matt, and he hadn't talked about it in a long time. Here's just synchronicity here. He was uploading a video. So I saw the show for the first time. And then the next day, I saw that Matt was doing a video on it. And I just listened to it on my drive into work this morning. So I'll have to leave a link because he gives a good breakdown on the show and a lot of great theories about what he thinks it has to do with our reality. But I was wanting to hear that. I just thought the synchronicity of all that come together was perfect. And then there's another synchronicity here too in my personal life where Severance and the corporate world and all that just fits perfectly with all of the synchronicities that have been happening at work. One of the things in this show, the Severance show, is that first episode I thought was funny is the lady Patricia. She's like the head boss. I think she was married to Nicolas Cage at one time. Anyway, I always thought she was really hot, and now she's a lot older, and I'm a lot older, and she's still, to me, she's really hot, full-figured woman. Anyway, the thing that I'm mentioning is she says to the main character in the outside life, she says, or maybe it was inside, I don't remember now. It's been like 2 days since I saw the show, but she says something like, there's good news and bad news. The good news is hell isn't real. It's something that we dream up in our mind. We think about it. We create it in our mind. And she says the bad news is anything we can dream up, we can create. And I thought that was kind of a funny. She said it better than I just said it. But so much of our reality in this construct feels like hell, and so much of it is just us doing it to each other. People just screwing each other over, treating each other badly. Just a little truth to it. The interesting idea about Severance is that you are outside of your mind, and who you are exist outside of your work life, and you just forget. When you get in the elevator to go to work, your brain does this little shift, and all you change into this person who's only at work, and that's all that's all of your memories. You're just this work person, and then you get in the elevator at the end of the day, and your brain flips off to being off work, and that's what you know from that point on. Is you just know your life outside of work. So your brain's kind of been severed, and it's so funny how similar the BS of corporate America. I've been picking on corporate America and corporate weasels for a long time. There's a lot of similarities, like just the doinky stuff that they do on their computer makes no sense. Just moving numbers around like a video game for children. It's so funny, and that's exactly what my work life feels like. I joke about how my responsibilities on paper look great, but in reality I'm just a ticket bitch. Meaning I have to stare at service request tickets and watch them as they come in and try and make some sort of response and action. That's pretty much it. Basically, I'm moving numbers around the screen. That's the entirety of my job. And I talk about the stupidity of corporate America, but there's certain themes that have come up in my life and my reality and my role of work. There's certain themes, and there's so many synchronicities around this theme, where I'll have a boss who doesn't appreciate me. A lot of times it's a female boss. There's a situation or scenario where they have a best friend who's in lower rank and lower experience than me, and yet they buddy up with that person and undermine my authority. A lot of times I have more experience than the big boss, and I feel like, how on earth does this person have that job? That all of these themes just keep regurgitating themselves. And in all fairness, I kind of did my last 2 years I've experienced this, where the big boss is best friends with somebody who's much lower rank and much younger than them, and is just undermining my authority and taking away my decision-making ability and just basically killing me in my position. And that's happened again in this role, where a good friend from the past is now working for the big boss, and they're just like two girlfriends talking all day, going to lunch constantly, going out for coffee, talking on the phone, and often undermining my decisions and my authority. I kind of did that. I'm a little bit guilty of that because when I was in an older role, I hired Dan. And I brought Dan in as one of my employees. And it lasted about 3 months, but I did it without telling anybody we were friends. And we, I did kind of enjoy having a friend around that I could go out to lunch and talk crap about, smoking and joking, just having a good time. And I did that for 3 months, and then when I left, positioned it to where he could get my job. Really manipulated the situation so that I could have a friend at work and he could have some fun too. So that happened. And then the next 2 years, I find myself in this scenario where the big boss has some friend underneath me, and it's classic, right? This kind of thing. It's just a classic scenario. So let me tell you one of the synchronicities. One is, I knew that this job can't continue like this. I can't function like this where my decisions are being overridden all the time. They're also staffing up quite a bit, but I'm not in the inner circle anymore of decision making that my boss was including me in before, because now she's got other people. So I started looking for another job, not just whatever. I mean, it's so weird synchronistically how I even came across that job, how like that was the only job for me. Like if I even try to consider and look at other positions, they just completely roadblocked. But this job, it's like somebody's kicking the doors wide open, and it's like ushering me into this new position. So the new position, I accepted officially, and I'll be starting that in February. And this job is funny because I knew things weren't going great here, and I had that sense, and there's a lot of tells, and you can just see. But I think the funniest was the guy, my boss, got promoted to another level, and they had to backfill her position. There was no talk to me, of course, that I should get it or be interviewing for it. So they hired in another guy, and he's now over me. Last couple months, he has been like just sitting there absorbing everything, hasn't really talked hardly at all. He just sits quiet next to me all day long. I get away from my desk, I stretch my legs, I walk around the place, I come back. So this happened a week or two ago, a couple weeks ago. I come back to my desk and I can hear him quietly talking on the phone with somebody that sounds like they're in HR. And of course, I'm slightly nosy, so I'm letting my ears pick up the conversation. I can tell he's talking to an HR person, and I can tell he's talking about a position that's the same as mine. And as I'm listening, I was like, well, he's talking about my exact position. He's trying to replace me. And I hear him say, the HR person is saying, how quickly do you want to fill this position? He's like, we're looking to move pretty fast, like in the next 2 or 3 months. Now, keep in mind, if I could just make it until June, mid-June, they can't just fire me without paying out a severance package, which is like a couple months, which would be nice to get a severance package. I don't know that they would keep me around. At this point, I don't know that they would keep me until my 2-year point where I would get that severance. But this, again, synchronistic coincidence, this show and what's going on at my work. Anyway, I'm listening to this mofo advertising my position. And after he got off the call, I saw the big boss returning to the little office area we sit in. And I said, can we talk? And she's like, yeah, I've got a bunch of meetings, but maybe after that. So she's dodging me, and not dodging me yet, but she's too busy for me. So when she was in her little conference room, I grabbed this other guy who backfilled her and said, hey, you got a second we can talk? I said, sure. And I confront the guy. I said, what's going on? You're advertising for my job. And he's, stammering and of course, being caught. not knowing what to say. And he speculates some lame excuse. He said, let me talk to the big boss and I'll get back to you. So he goes into private meetings with her, and for the rest of the day, they're dodging me. And I feel like I've already told you all this, so forgive me if I have. So they're dodging me for the rest of the day. They're not coming out to speak. They're kind of hiding. And at the very last part of the day, he comes out and he gives me the lamest excuse in the world for why they're why they're interviewing for my position and um, why I wasn't told about it. Really he doesn't give hardly any explanation at all. He just gives me the job ID and says we encourage you to apply for it. That was it. So here I am, just getting that synchronistic confirmation that this is the end. And they may keep me on long enough to hit my severance package. They may not. There's no guarantee. But the funny thing is I was listening to this guy. I was listening to this guy post a position with HR for my replacement, and at the very exact same time, I was receiving an email of the offer letter from the other company. So, just exact same moment. What are the odds of that? Now, if you think that I just went ahead and flipped everybody off and said I'm out. I did not do that. I did not do that blaze of glory, but I did work on an offer letter. This one's a little more cheeky than I think I'm going to use, but not an offer. I worked on a severance or a resignation letter. Let me see if I can find it. All right, here's a resignation letter that I don't think I'm going to say this, but it would be funny. Just a funny idea. Uh, Dear R, I'm writing to share a decision I have reached regarding my role as senior manager, a position I've held and performed diligently for the past 20 months. As much as I appreciate your invitation to apply for the very position I currently occupy, I've decided not to pursue this unique opportunity. While I'm deeply grateful for your encouragement, I believe it would be in my best interest to explore other career avenues that recognize the skills, experience, and unwavering commitment I have displayed during my tenure in this position. I am confident that my expertise will be valued elsewhere, perhaps in an environment where my role is not being actively advertised while I still hold the position. In light of this decision, I am submitting my 2-week notice of resignation for the position of Senior Facilities Manager, effective 2/7. Please be assured that I will work closely with the team to facilitate a smooth and efficient transition during this period. Thank you for providing me with the chance to serve in this capacity. It has been truly an unforgettable experience. I wish you and the company success in finding a qualified candidate to fill the role, which should be an intriguing endeavor considering the circumstances. So what do you think about that? Is it passive aggressive enough? I'm not going to go quite that cheeky, but I'm gonna let them know this week that I'm gonna cut and run. So lots of coincidences and synchronicities occurred around that situation, and then other smaller things. But what are the odds that I'm going to be getting an offer letter from another company at the same time I'm sitting down to overhear this SOB advertising for my own job? Just too perfect. And then in my personal life, and long backstory and probably not worth getting that personal, there's been other things that just recently, like 3 times in the last week, there have been like these amazing coincidences that are just impossible. It's like a total setup, like some force outside of this reality is setting this up. And I mean, like 1,000,000 to 1 odds that this would occur, something from the past and things like that. And it's like somebody's setting this up to see what I'm going to do here. Somebody out there is wanting to see what decision I'm going to make. That's what it is. I mean, I feel positive. This is one of those I knows. This is like the third I know. The second I know is that there's somebody out there, somebody or somebodies. And the third is sometimes they set up these things as just to see what I'm going to do. And sometimes there's oftentimes I think there's a morality or character test to see what I'm going to do. And other times I don't know what the test is. I can't say for sure it's a character test or whatever the heck it is, but they're setting the scenario up just to see what I'm going to do. I know that with this current situation in the job, there's a temptation to like go out in a blaze of glory and do all kinds of stuff that I would find humorous. But at the same time, I don't need to feed the ego. I don't need to glory in, sticking it in their face or sabotaging the environment. I don't need to do any of that. I'll just leave quietly and peacefully and be done. But I do need to face the big boss, I feel like. It's like in the past, I've left jobs where I didn't confront the person face to face. I just left. And I feel it's necessary to look her in the eye and say, I'm leaving and this is why I'm leaving. And I just want you to know that. No hard feelings, but I'm leaving you. And this is the reason. So I need to have that conversation with her and set up for Friday. But the question of why I'm being, why these things happen and who's watching and who's evaluating and what they want, these are deeper questions, of course. I also know with the new job and the new role, it's important for me to not get excited about it or even it's important to suppress the ego. Don't feed the ego during the process. I mean, this new job might be a flash in the pan and be over just as quick as it starts. And rather than concern myself about what this next life looks like for me, it's a better approach to just trust that it's all going to work out in the end. And it all, because of the observers on the outside and the people setting up the test, while there may be some malicious forces there, I do feel like there's a positive force that's rooting for me and working in my favor, and that at the end of the day, it all works out. Even if the next job were to be nothing, were to be a complete mistake, which I've certainly done before. But not going into it with great expectations or high hopes, just going into it as detached emotionally and suppressing the ego as much as possible. And I'm in my mid-50s, so I'm just going to do a last push and then hopefully be able to retire and just, sit around and do my YouTube video. Sit around and contemplate what this is all about and maybe get a few more numbers down the list of what I know. There's a lot of I thinks, many more I thinks than I believes than I know. But I would say that this reality, just coming down to what I know, this reality is fake. I know that there's someone, some things, some intelligence and personalities that are outside of it, looking in, maybe manipulating it, whatever. I also know that they set up very unique situations for me, some tests, just to see what it is I'm going to do, and I suppose others as well. But sticking to the ones that I know and trying to come up with more answers to these questions and how to approach it. But one of the approaches seems to be to not get overly engaged, to detach yourself, to not be overly engaged and not be emotionally connected, to unlock yourself from really caring one way or the other. Keep in the middle of the road. Don't fall into, because some of the scenarios that have been presented for me could easily put me into a state of despair, and that's just another ego reinforcement. And then others would put me in a state of materialism and just enjoying the pleasures of life. That's just another ego boost. Yeah, one of the books of the Bible that I enjoy the most is Ecclesiastes. And Ephesians is another one, 2 ebooks. But the Ecclesiastes, where Solomon's just kind of running down life in the construct, life in the matrix, and what it's all about. He basically gives, the overwhelming theme throughout. And my nose is all blocked up today. Sorry, it sounds weird. The theme that he gives is none of this matters. It's all meaningless. It's all vain. And then the other one he gives is, all the pursuits that he had in his life as a younger man was all pointless. And all of those pursuits were ego feeds. I mean, all of the things that he was going after, the pleasures of life, the ego feed of life, the attachment. He was just attaching himself over and over and over to this reality. And his conclusion at the end is really a statement saying, the right thing to do is not feed the ego. The right thing to do is not attach yourself. To stick to humility in all things, in all ways. And yeah, I'm not going to read it exactly. I want you to go ahead and look it up yourself and see what he says. But basically, the conclusion at the end of the day is don't get sucked into the matrix. Don't feed your ego. Stay humble. And be aware of the outside force. That those are some of the conclusions. I like Ecclesiastes because he kind of sums up a lot of observations that I also have had. Anyway, I'm going to wrap that up. Hope you all have a good day. We'll go over some of the comments from that last video in a future one, hopefully soon, and I'll keep you posted on the craziness of this reality and my parting from this company. All right, y'all take care. God bless.